Hey, it's Corbett Harrison, and today I'm going to be modeling yet another valid use of Screencast-O-Matic in a busy classroom teacher's classroom. So here what we were talking about is using the program to model explicitly thinking, so that if a student didn't hear you explain it the first time and needs to hear it again, that you have this ability to say, well, why don't you watch the video this time? Or it's been 3 or 4 weeks since we tried this writing assignment. Here's a quick review of how to think when you do that writing assignment. I'm going to model today my process for coming up with an unusual recipe, which is what I call them. The idea comes from 51 Wacky Research Reports, where Barry Lane calls them wacky recipe poems. But I'm going to model my process because it takes applying creative thought to a logical idea to be able to write one of these recipes well. First thing you need, though, and I model this with my students, is you need a good list of verbs that you would read in a cookbook. And I start with the list I have over there at left, but my students can come up with many more. We actually do that days before we ever write our own unusual recipe. But having that word list is a good thing for this. 2 books that I use when I model the process are either Thunder Cake by Patricia Polacco or Enemy Pie by Derek Munson, 2 books about making something in the kitchen that you normally wouldn't make, which is the concept of the wacky recipe poem. For this demonstration, I'm going to focus on Thunder Cake by Patricia Polacco. I went and found this very simple, straightforward 3 steps on how you create thunder. Alright, and I'll just summarize. Number 1, lightning shoots through the sky and it causes vibrations, and those vibrations are what we hear when when we hear thunder. And how does thunder get louder? Well, lightning, when it's hot, it heats up the air around it, and that hot air can expand and make even louder vibrations, which causes even louder thunder. And then finally, if you ever have been in a city during thunder, it sounds really loud because it's echoing off the buildings. And so that's the basic process of where thunder comes from. How do you put that in the form of a recipe? Well, I will show you. The first thing is you have to come up with measurement nouns for all of the ingredients you're going to need. And so summarizing, highlighting the list on the right, I came up with the following important ingredients that need to be present for thunder to be made. And what my first job is, once I have the ingredients brainstormed from the research material, is I need to turn them into something that would look like it was in a recipe using measurement nouns. And so I will take the lightning and turn it into a slice of lightning, which kind of denotes size, but also talks about lightning itself. I like the slice because it makes you think of the produce department, even though it's not food. Well, this is not really a recipe, but I like the idea. I've turned it into a slice of lightning. That's going to be one of my ingredients. And let's do 5 cups of air particles, just because that seems like, in comparison to a slice of lightning, about probably what we might be needing. I'm trying to justify in my brain, quantify. Let's put 10 pounds of vibrations coming from that, though. That a lot comes out of this. And then, the idea of force and heat, I figure I can put those into my instructions themselves, using force, using heat, which is what you do in the kitchen. So I'm going to skip those as ingredients. I'll move them to my instructions, and I'm going to go to the buildings and cliffs, the things that make those echoes. And instead of just echoes, which we could say, I'm going to go real fancy kitchen talk and say I'm going to have a dash of echoes. And so I just took my process of taking those ingredients and turning them into what sounds like kitchen ingredients. That's part of the process I'm modeling for you. And then you have to come up with the steps. And again, back to the steps, you have to try to use kitchen verbs. Don't overuse them, but try to come up with a creative way with every sentence or every other sentence. You're putting a verb in there that actually could be used in the kitchen as well. And so, for example, if I want to unwrap my lightning and aggressively stir my particles, there I am, taking that first step of the summary of how lightning is made, and I'm trying to use kitchen verbs to explain the same process. Thunder should float to the top of the bowl at this point. It will increase, and that's how I decided to make my recipe. As I'd say, with each step, the thunder gets a little bit louder. Each time you add 1 to 5 pounds of vibrations, which luckily, look at that, they're right over there in my ingredients because I thought to include them. You heat the lightning source. Remember, when heated lightning causes louder, and then stir again, and then add. These are all kitchen recipe verbs. adding remaining vibrations to taste is something you'd read in a recipe, so I included that. And then if you use you got some very, very loud thunder cake going on here. And then finally, if it's not loud enough, notice I'm getting a little bit louder and a little bit louder. Then let's toss our mixture, which again, it's not really a mixture in the sense of a kitchen mixture, but that does sound kitchen-like, against tall buildings with the dash of echoes to increase the thunder even more. And so I just went from these ingredients and this description to this this wacky recipe, and that's the idea here. And the whole point of writing in a recipe is the words that you put down, they're totally your words. You can't really find research that's written like a recipe, and so when you have to turn it into a recipe and use those specific types of nouns, measurements, verbs, kitchen verbs, then you are being required to put it completely in your own words, which to me is the value. Make you think about it in your own terms. And so that is my process for how to make thunder. I hope it helped you so that you can go through the process again when we get today's topic for what your recipe is going to be on. Hey, take pride in your recipe. Here's my recipe for a satisfying summer day from my writer's notebook. My ingredients, my list of instructions. Take pride when you create it, because a good looking recipe celebrates the good thought that you put into it. And so that is the process for creating an unusual recipe. Thanks for listening. Bye.